Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're shining a spotlight on a totally fascinating, unseen world that surrounds us every single day. We're talking about the invisible threat of zoonotic diseases. Now, I know that sounds incredibly scientific, but this impacts absolutely everyone on the planet. It's actively shaping our history and our future in ways you might not even realize.
So let me ask you this. What do rabies, malaria, and COVID-19 all actually have in common? I mean, on the surface, they look like completely different illnesses, right? Different symptoms affecting different parts of the body. But here's the wild part. They share the exact same origin story. Every single one of these diseases started out not in humans, but out in the animal kingdom.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The animal-human connection, 2. Meet the pathogenic culprits, 3. Crossing the species barrier, 4. Fueling the outbreaks, and 5. One Health and future defenses.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the animal-human connection. This is really where the whole mystery begins. You know, we kind of tend to think of ourselves as being totally separate from nature. But biologically, we share this massive, invisible landscape with animals. And that brings us to a crucial definition you need to know: zoonosis. Put simply, these are infections that originate in animals and are transmitted to humans, either directly or indirectly. It's a simple arrow from animal to human. And understanding this transmission is a massive deal for public health, mostly because these types of infections account for a huge proportion of all emerging infectious diseases worldwide. But you might be wondering, where are these diseases just hanging out before they reach us? Well, they hide in what we call reservoir hosts. We're talking about bats, rodents, birds, and even livestock like your everyday cattle, pigs, and goats. Think of a reservoir host as a silent biological safe house. These animals carry the pathogens perfectly fine, literally without showing a single symptom themselves. The disease just quietly waits.
Moving right along to Section 2, meet the pathogenic culprits, the 4 types of microscopic invaders.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we're actually up against. We're fighting a massive diversity of microscopic invaders, and they're grouped into 4 main types: bacterial, viral, parasitic, and fungal. Now, bacterial threats like tuberculosis and parasitic protozoa like malaria, they have plagued us for centuries. But it's really the viral category where we're seeing some of the absolute fastest moving recent threats. I mean, we're talking rabies, Ebola, COVID-19. Even fungi can make the jump. Things like ringworm cause entirely different but still super significant issues for us. All right, Section 3, crossing the species barrier. How pathogens actually make the leap. So how do these pathogens actually pull off this incredible magic trick, jumping from an animal right into a human? Well, the 2 primary pathways are direct and indirect contact. Direct contact is exactly what it sounds like, right? Getting bitten, scratched, or physically petting an infected animal. But indirect contact, that's a bit sneakier. This happens when the pathogen lives on a contaminated surface or in the dirt. You could literally just be out gardening, or maybe you touch a fence post that an infected animal brushed up against hours ago, and boom, you're inviting that invisible threat right into your system.
But hey, the pathways definitely don't stop there. We also have 3 other major modes of transmission. First up, vector-borne. Think of mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas as essentially tiny flying syringes that carry the pathogen from the animal straight to your bloodstream. Second is food and water. Eating undercooked meat or drinking contaminated milk or water is a huge entry point. And finally, we have airborne transmission, which is inhaling contaminated aerosols. It's rare, for sure, but as we've all learned recently, it's highly effective when it happens.
Which brings us to Section 4, fueling the outbreaks, the perfect storm of human activity. So, the crucial point here is that we need to zoom out from the microscopic level for a second and look at the massive global forces driving these spillovers. These diseases, they don't just jump on their own. Human activity is actively forcing these crossovers to happen more and more frequently. Things like deforestation and habitat loss, they push wild animals out of their natural homes and literally right into our backyards. Add in climate change, shifting where animals live, intensive animal farming, and nonstop global travel, we are basically creating a perfect storm. We're systematically breaking down the natural barriers that used to separate us from those reservoir hosts. And the results of breaking down those barriers are just devastatingly real. We're seeing rabies outbreaks severely impacting rural regions. We literally all just lived through the COVID-19 global pandemic. Avian influenza is continuously threatening our global food supply, and Ebola outbreaks in Africa have shown us exactly how fast and fatal a spillover can be. This is the reality of what happens when that human-animal barrier breaks down.
Let's move into Section 5, One Health and Future Defenses. It's time to talk about fighting back with science. Because listen, we absolutely aren't helpless here. The core of our defense relies on what experts call the One Health approach. This is an integrated strategy combining human, animal, and environmental health. We finally realized that we can't just treat humans in isolation anymore. To truly prevent and control these diseases, we have to treat the whole interconnected ecosystem at the same time. Medical, veterinary, and environmental sciences literally have to work together as a team.
To actually execute that One Health approach, we rely on 4 fundamental, everyday prevention strategies. First, we need vaccination for both humans and animals. Think sweeping global rabies control programs. Second, basic everyday hygiene practices, like thorough hand washing and safe food handling. Third, aggressive vector control, like deploying mosquito control programs and using insect repellents. And fourth, massive global surveillance systems monitoring populations to catch these diseases super early. These 4 steps form our vital first line of protection.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how biotechnology is stepping up to back up those daily strategies. It's giving us an incredible new high-tech arsenal. We're talking PCR for rapid molecular diagnosis and mRNA technology for unbelievably fast vaccine development. We can now sequence the entire genome of a pathogen in a matter of days. We're developing biosensor-based detection systems and even using CRISPR as a highly precise diagnostic tool. We are literally decoding these microscopic invaders at the genetic level to defeat them.
At the end of the day, all of this incredible science really just boils down to one core mission: why we study zoonoses in the first place. And the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. We study them to prevent the next global pandemic. We do it to improve our health systems, to develop life-saving vaccines and treatments, and to constantly enhance how we monitor the globe for that next invisible threat.
Let's move on and see how this builds an absolutely wild vision for the future. We are approaching a horizon where AI can actually predict outbreaks before they even happen by crunching massive amounts of ecological data. We're working toward advanced genomic surveillance, portable diagnostic kits you could throw in a backpack and use anywhere, and the holy grail of immunology, universal vaccines for entire families of zoonotic viruses. And all of this is going to be tied together by integrated One Health systems operating globally. So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. As human activity inevitably continues to push us closer to the animal kingdom, the threat of zoonotic diseases is only going to grow. But with AI, CRISPR, and massive global surveillance, can we actually predict and stop the next pandemic before a pathogen even crosses the species barrier? The science is racing to make that a reality, and simply understanding this invisible threat is your very first step. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking questions.